I had an open fall and wanted to head up on a mountain goat hunt. A buddy of mine referred me to Pierce Nelson, a guide he had met while caribou hunting in Alaska. I called Pierce up to ask about a good mountain goat hunt. Pierce replied that during the period I was available, he had an opening in his Dall Sheep camp. I responded by saying that I couldn't afford a Dall hunt, but we were able to negotiate a price for one hunter and one observer, and the hunt planning was on. The observer was Carrie, my wife. The hunt area was just south of Fairbanks on the west fork of the Little Delta River. We got to Fairbanks and verified that my rifle, a Remington 707mm Rem mag, was still shooting straight. Carrie and I then took several days driving around Alaska. We went up to Mount McKinley and spotted some Dall sheep high above us. I asked a ranger if we could hike up to them, and his response was, "It's your park, feel free." So we did, and after a 2-hour climb we were amongst the sheep. It was a group of about 20, spread over a high ridge. We were able to get some good photos and whet our appetite for the hunt, judging some nice park rams. We also saw several bull caribou during the day. Saturday, August 15th, dawned bright and sunny as our excitement grew for the hunt. We met Pierce at noon at Fairbanks International. Bob Bursell of Wright's Air flew the group of us to the bush strip in his Helio Courier.
Okay, well here we are at Al Wright's flying station, and here you can see the plane that we're about to take. Here's all our gear before we begin our big adventure.
Okay, and here we are with Carrie talking to our guide Pierce Nelson. I'm sure you'll see a lot more of him over the coming days. Talking the old sheep lore there.
We spent the next 4 hours hiking upstream to Pierce's cabin. On the hike we were flanked by 4 caribou for about an hour. We crossed one set of grizzly bear tracks, but not the bear. While hiking, Pierce explained that the willow bark was high in acetylsalicylic acid, aspirin, a handy tidbit. As the sun began to disappear behind the high ridges of our north-south valley, it began to get pretty cold. We arrived at the cabin, which was in a great setting, bordered by steep mountains to the sides and by a glacier to the south.
Here we are. We finally have arrived where we're staying. That's the valley, little area that we hiked up today. Only a few blisters. Some of the mountains that we're gonna glass for sheep. You can see the nice stream. Yes, we can drink right out of this stream. Fearless hunter, there he is.
Oh.
Okay, I'm just gonna do a 360 here. So, some more mountains that might have sheep on them.
Well, we already
Ooh,
saw.
the glacial mountain. Let's get a close up of this.
And we already saw a bunch of caribou up here.
Kind of cold. Camera's kind of shaking just a little bit because I'm shivering. Okay. So there's a glacier. Rumor has it we might be out at 2:30, 3 o'clock tomorrow morning. Coming up to get those sheep.
I'm doing a Geraldo on location here. Let's go in and see what 2 lux will do for Mr. Camera. Oh yes, very bright in here.
Excuse me.
We made it.
Oh yeah, there you are. Now we got, let's see, we got a bunk there, we got a bunk there. We'll come in, sweep in here. Let's see, everybody brings happiness. Some by coming, others by going. Yeah, here we go. Moving around here. Ooh, not very focused on that. Oh, we got a lantern. We've got all the luxuries of life there. Nice stove. Oh yeah, look at, ooh, there we go. Kerosene heater, instant heat, and everything you could ever want. And
Home away from home.
Home away from home.
Sunday, August 16th, we were out of bed by 0330. Breakfast eaten, feet taped, and we were out hiking by 0500. And we had spotted 5 rams by 0630. Spent the morning trying to get closer to them. 2 were at least full curl, which was the minimum allowed. We climbed a very steep slope across from them, but were only able to close to about 700 yards. The larger sheep was greater than full curl, with great symmetry, and the other greater than full curl, but with the right side broomed. They slowly ambled away, and we went up another valley to try to spot some other sheep, but with no luck. We slept for a while and ate lunch. We then went to where we had seen the sheep in the morning and went up the grassy slopes to where they had been feeding. It was about 1400, and they normally feed from 1630 to 1800. After getting fairly far up, we spotted 4 sheep on a ridge level with us, but it was 2 ewes and 2 lambs. Then we spotted 4 more entering the valley from the riverbed below, and we got in good position to lay in wait for them. There were 2 rams in the group, and one of them looked to be legal. Finally, after about 15 minutes, they crested the ridge, walking right towards us. The largest ram just about walked right into me, stopping about only 10 yards away. I was alternately looking through the scope and back at Pierce, wondering if this was to be the sheep. Pierce, with his expert eye, judged the horn only to be about 15/16ths, barely short of the full curl. We watched as the sheep slowly grazed away from us. Then the 2 ewes and 2 lambs came up the valley from below. We then spotted another group of 5 rams high above us on the mountain, silhouetted on the ridge. It was an amazing sight with the snow and the sun. Then a lower, equally inaccessible group of 5 rams appeared below them. The mountain was literally crawling with sheep, but none within shooting distance. We watched until 1930 and then hiked back to the cabin, arriving at 2130. What an exciting first day of sheep hunting. We'd seen 25 sheep, 3 of which were legal rams. Monday did not dawn. The sun was hidden and we had rain, rain, and more rain. During the night we heard it on the roof, and all during the day it continued to come down. Our alarm sounded at 0300 and 0400, but due to the weather we finally got out of bed at about 10 o'clock. The snow line had descended to about 300 feet above the cabin, and we decided this would be a day best spent in bed, listening to the sleet outside. The Adventures of a Norwegian Chichako was read at least once, and the transistor radio weekly played some tunes. Freeze-dried food was again the order of the day. During weather like this, the sheep hole up, so we would need to wait for it to clear, and then they would be feeding everywhere, hopefully. Tuesday also opened with rain, but the storm began to break in the afternoon. I started to get cabin fever about noon and went out for a quick, and I mean really quick, bath in the glacial stream. I later put on my coat and started wandering around across the stream, looking for ptarmigan in the willows. I saw no birds, but did find some nice moose antlers shed earlier in the year. At about 1500, I spotted a group of 35 ewes and lambs and 1 young ram on the slope right above the cabin, about 800 yards up, and they stayed there all afternoon and evening. Right before dinner, we saw a group of about 9 rams several miles up the canyon and decided to hunt them in the morning. We then had a nice bonfire on the stream bank. It was pretty chilly out.
And coming across to the cabin. Oh yes, and we leave you with the view. Of all the sheep we were looking at earlier. Okay, here we are, later the same evening, and there's our friendly sheep right outside the cabin still. They were earlier, as you see, just over on the right there on the green. There's one of our little tents at the cabin. But they've decided to go ahead and get up into these rocks here for protection from the wolves, so that they don't get et. There's a bunch of ewes up there, and you can see a bunch of lambs wandering around. There's some more right down in there making tracks over a little side. I expect again in the morning that they will be still there.
Wednesday began with great hopes. We arose at 0330, hiking at 0500 after coffee and a warm bowl of cream of wheat. It felt cold outside, so we donned our long underwear and our thick wool pants. After 2 days of rest, our bodies felt great, ready for anything. We went up the valley to just below the ice cave, where our stream exits a glacier, and began to climb the west moraine. Got on the group of rams we'd seen the night prior, but they winded us at 100 yards, just as we found them. 9 sheep rumps going over the hill were all we saw. They had been on their way down to feed in the willows, and had we been 20 minutes later, due to our angle of approach, we'd have caught them from above. The setting was great, looking over at the glacier, up at the sheep, and all around the valley view below. We glassed the sheep for a while. 5 of the 9 were full curl or better, with several of those being magnificent heads. We then took the spotting scope and glassed all the surrounding valleys, and spotted 2 sheep on a point 2 miles distant. We couldn't tell how big the horns were, only that they were rams. Pierce said that there was a chance that one might be legal, but it was a pretty far hike, down the mountain we were on, across the river, and up the opposite mountain. I responded that we were here to hunt, and the sheep probably weren't going to come to us, so let's go to them. So for this chance of a legal sheep, we dropped into the river valley and started up the far mountain. A little way up the slope, Piers edged up to a small ridge and scoped the sheep for a while, studying the horns. He came back excited, saying that one was way more than legal. We dropped back off the ridge into a stream-filled ravine going up the mountain, startling 2 marmots as we passed. Our sheep were up the mountain somewhere, and on the slope to our left was a group of ewes and lambs. We finally spotted the sheep again, about 1,200 yards out, and they had moved a little ways to a further ridge. The larger one was silhouetted on the point of the ridge, but we couldn't move to get a photograph for fear that he might see the movement and bolt. He finally slowly ambled off the point. We went up the shale ravine where we thought the rams had bedded down for the afternoon. When they had last ambled out of sight, it appeared to us that they had crossed the 30-foot ridge above us to our left, but then suddenly Pierce spotted them 100 yards above us to our right, bedded down. I was about to shoot, thinking it was the best shot I could get, but Pierce said, "Wait, they're bedded down. Let them stand up." I sighted in on them and asked, "Which one?" To which Pierce responded, "The one on the right."
Okay, here's the time. Here's the date. This is the gully we just came up, and we missed the pop. But Jack just shot a sheep.
The echo of the shot over the stream noise in the valley was great. "He's hit! He's hit!" yelled Pierce, even though it was hard to tell as both sheep had disappeared over the ridge. "Great!" I yelled, feeling confidence of the shot, and toyed a little with Pierce, asking, "When you said shoot the one on the right, did you mean our right or his right?" Carrie, meanwhile, had gotten the camera on just as the shot was fired, and after a quick, very quick pan of the valley, watched us climb the slope towards the sheep. It was only 100 yards up, but it was very steep, and we were a bit winded at the top.
Here's where we just came up. And as I said, Jack's got him in. Here, you go see my way up there. So we're gonna go see what the sheep looks like. Okay. Put the time on there. Let's go check it out, guys.
There was no sign of the sheep, so we went to where he had been and found a little blood. We then looked at the direction they had run, and then looked down slope and saw him lying about 100 yards over and slightly below us. We finally got to the sheep, and it was a symmetric, full curl trophy ram. The excitement was great, about to be tempered by several hours of hard work. The glacial slope was so steep that we had to build a rock shelf to keep the sheep from rolling down the mountain as we skinned it. Pierce skinned and quartered the sheep, giving the quarters to Carrie and me to bone. During the 3.5 hours it took to cape and bone all the meat, it got pretty cold out. I shot the sheep at 15:30 and it was now 1900, and we still had the hike back to the cabin to make. It was hardest for Pierce, as he had filled his pack with all the meat, the cape, and the horns.
Well, here we are coming off of our successful sheep hunt. We finally got Mr. Sheep taken care of. We boned all the meat so we didn't have to carry the bones out. And Pierce there is hauling 140, 150 pounds. And you can see there, he's grown a pair of sheep horns protruding out the back. Yeah, we'll see more of those later on. It's new to keep his balance with all that weight. And of course behind him is my wife, Carol Lynn. Wave to the camera, Carrie. She can't hear us because the big river's going in. And of course we hiked way up here to get here today. So what we need to do is hike out of this all the way down to the river basin, which you can barely see through that gorge, and then go a couple miles downstream through the willows. And then of course we have wonderful sheep meat for dinner.
Here we are, almost back to the cabin. You can see the canyon we came out of. That's where we hunted the first day. These canyons that we've climbed. We're following the stream down, and the cabin is just around this corner. The hunt is nearly complete. Now it's time to go home and have some Dall Sheep backstrap steaks.
There we go, so we finally arrived back here at the cabin. We're gonna get the old charcoal. There's my tired wife. But we finally have gotten back here after our hard, successful day hunting. All the meat in the rack is in the pack there. Oh, here we are, August 20th. We got Mr. Sheep's head right there. And we're about to finish cleaning the cape off of it here. We got 9 o'clock, I guess, last night. Wonderful dinner.
Dinner was fabulous. Backstrap steaks marinated in garlic and parsley butter, barbecued over charcoal on Pierce's Weber grill with a nice wine. Sleep that night was well earned. Thursday we slept in, and then spent the day cleaning the cape and relaxing. Pierce was using his small knives, turning the ears, eyes, nose, and lips. We then salted the cape and hung the meat several inches above the river so that it would stay cool. I was off wandering somewhere, and Carrie spent quite a bit of time chatting with Pierce about his bear hunts, goat hunts, river rafting, rattlesnake dens, and other adventures he's had. In the afternoon, Pierce was debating climbing a nearby mountain to get a call out on his radio phone for an early airplane pickup. We decided we would just hike down to the airstrip the next day and make the call from there. Backstrap steaks were again order of the day, and they far outpaced the freeze-dried foods we'd been eating earlier. We were up Friday at about 0500, left the cabin for the airstrip at 0930. On the hike out, we came across a huge grizzly print in the riverbed, much larger than Pierce's boot. We also came across 7 caribou, who again ambled along in front of us for a while. Once we arrived at the airstrip, we stopped at another guide's camp and had some tea while Pierce made the hike up the nearby foothill to use his radio telephone. He was unable to get out, and on his return said that we just have to wait 3 days for our scheduled pickup. I said, "No way," and I borrowed the radio and headed up to the top of the nearby mountain. After 20 minutes of attempts, I was finally able to raise the operator and make the call. It was a beautiful setting, high in the wilderness. A group of 7 rams on a far slope were butting heads, and the sun was warm above. Finally, I came back to reality and came down from the mountain. Mission accomplished. The next morning we were up at 7:30, quick wash in the stream, and we gathered our gear together. We were about to have morning coffee when our plane landed. Due to the increased weight, we would need to make 2 trips out, so Carrie and Jack and the sheep went out on the first trip. We saw a couple groups of sheep in the high meadows, and they were running from the noise of the plane. As the day was clear, we could see all the way to Mount McKinley. What a great ending to a great hunt. After I was back home, I made an 8.5 by 11 relief map of the hunt area. I made 2 copies, one for our guide Pierce and one for myself. It took quite a bit of time making the form and placing all the finishing touches. A Dall sheep is my #1 North American game animal. Some folks hold other quarry higher, but for me, it is the Dall.